Bada bing, bada boom. Social Inform Media.
The story comes to us from chicago.suntimes.com. Chicago. Now remember Officer Ronald Watts, the police sergeant out of Chicago that was like, we'll find out what he was doing. He was doing some dirty stuff. He was convicted for it, but and then he served time. Well, he's come back. He's now living in Las Vegas, trying to keep a low profile. Well, until now, and you're gonna love the excuses this guy makes. Now, after his 2015 release from federal custody, former police sergeant Ronald Watts went to Vegas to keep a low profile. He said nothing to the media as Cook County judges starting the next year threw out more than 200 felony convictions stemming from arrests by the Chicago PD unit he led. I've done editorials on this guy. He did not He did not publicly criticize State's Attorney Kim Foxx when she sidelined 10 former members of the unit from testifying in criminal cases due to what her office described as concerns about their credibility in light of his corruption. So basically, she sidelined these members of his unit and said, "You're not testifying because I don't like your credibility." Good for her. Nobody likes a cop's credibility. That's my problem, is I'm just too honest. And I'm not trying to brag or be vain. I just am. It's a burden. Okay, it's a burden to be so honest. It really is, because it's I can't do it. Now the exonerees are seeking punitive damages from Watts and compelling him to sit for depositions, 5 depositions so far, in which their attorneys will grill him under oath for hours. Watts, who's 59 now, is speaking publicly for the first time since his 22-month imprisonment for stealing what he thought was drug money from an FBI informant. Woo! Everyone who ever see The Departed? Jack Nicholson? Now Watts, who now lives in Arizona, so he moved to Vegas, but now he lives in Arizona, I get it, gave an hour-long interview last week to Blaze TV, a conservative web streaming service, saying an anti-police atmosphere explains his arrest, his 2013 guilty plea, Fox's benching of his former underlings, and all the exonerations tied to him. He's basically saying, look, it was an anti-police atmosphere that got me arrested. Yeah, because people just want to see cops go to jail for nothing. No, you were convicted for a crime. In the interview, Ronald Watts told Blaze TV host Jason Whitlock that federal investigators, Kim Foxx, journalists, and liberal universities are all bent on attacking aggressive cops at the expense of communities like the one he policed on the South Side. It's not at the expense of the communities, it's at the protection of the communities. We're trying to get you, like you say, aggressive cops out the community. And that's why I'm going to turn up the heat on my cop watching. We're going to start doing complaints. We're going to start doing all this stuff. We're going to start getting these cops who are violating the department policy and violating civil rights. We're going to get you moved out. It's time. We're tired of it. It's been 30 years. Now, Watts said, I've never done anything outside being hardworking and taking care of my family. I have to defend myself. But allegations that Watts and his team were extorting money from drug dealers in the former Ida B. Wells public housing complex and falsely arresting people who would not cooperate led to investigations spanning more than 8 years, according to a report by the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA, out of Chicago. They investigate officer misconduct. I don't know how much bite they have, but that's what they do. Those probes involved federal agencies including the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as local entities including Chicago Police Department and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Now, the FBI closed its investigation in 2006 into Watts, according to the COPA report, but reopened it in 2007 after obtaining information about the team's corruption from other Chicago police officers. Uh-oh. Snitches get stitches and end up in ditches like bitches. That's why cops don't snitch. Watts and an officer he supervised, Khalid Mohammed. Now remember, Khalid Mohammed also got convicted. Watts and an officer he supervised, Khalid Mohammed, in November 2011, stole $5,200 from a homeless person who had convinced Watts he would be transporting cash for drug traffickers that day. But the drug courier was actually a federal informant. Watts and Mohammed were arrested in February of 2012. See, he's a federal FBI informant, and they stole money from him. In his Blaze TV interview, Watts blamed his conviction on Mohammed. They always pass the buck. It's his fault. Who pleaded guilty first and received an 18-month prison sentence. Watts says he had gone into some things outside of things that I was not aware of, and that's for him to deal with. You're his sergeant. How are you not aware of it? Well, let's find out. Watts claims the feds had no evidence tying him to Mohammed's crime, apart from that officer's willingness to testify that he shared the proceeds with me. Well, let's see. But the FBI complaint against Watts described surveillance video, cell phone records, and recorded phone conversations showing Watts planning and overseeing the theft. You see, cops have short-term memories. They don't remember, oh, that's right, I forgot I talked to him on the phone. About 45 minutes after Mohammed took the $5,200, Watts met up with the informant, who was still posing as a drug courier, to pay hundreds of dollars for the cooperation, a transaction the complaint said was recorded through a wire on the informant. Always check for a wire. Now, bottom line, it goes down from there. I'm not going to keep harping on this. It's pretty long. It's in the description box below. The bottom line of this story is this former officer, Sergeant Ronald Watts, now that he's done his time for the crime, he's saying, I was squeezed like a lime. I don't know, man. I had to do that. No, he's crying and saying, it's not my fault. I was railroaded. I did nothing wrong. Just a hard-working cop. And the FBI is going, da-da-da-da. We have phone conversations.